The internet said my father was a hero. The footage showed him saving people from a fire. The footage lied. I never meant for anyone to see it. It was supposed to be a private thing, something I filmed on my phone at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. I'd been scrolling for hours, numb, watching other people's lives blur into mine. So I hit record and started talking. Not about anything important, just the usual. How this town felt like a closet you couldn't grow in, my friends and neighborhood. When I uploaded it, it had 1 view for the first 6 hours. By breakfast, it had 12,000. That's the thing about the internet. One night, you're invisible. The next morning, strangers are explaining you to yourself. People slowed the video down, zoomed in, pointed out the street signs behind me. Someone commented, "Is that the old Rayner property? Didn't a family disappear there?" Another replied, "Wait, her last name is Thorne, look that up." By noon, they had. They found everything. Mom came into the kitchen carrying the look she saves for emergencies. She said, "Don't check your phone." Too late. The notifications were stacked like rubble. My clip had been reposted to 3 true crime channels, each with a different headline. Girl accidentally confesses to something terrifying. Is Mara Thorne related to the Grayfield fire case? Watch her eyes when she lies. I laughed at first, then I read the comments. Someone had found our address from a reflection in the window. Another posted an aerial photo of our street. The third called my father by a name I'd never heard before, Caleb Rayner. When Mom heard that name, she dropped her coffee. She whispered, "Who wrote that?" already knowing the answer. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the feed. "You don't understand, Mara. Your father can't be found." "Why?" She didn't answer. She just whispered, "He promised it was over." I didn't know what it was, not yet. Dad came home an hour later, smelling like diesel and cold air. He looked at us, my mother pale, my phone still buzzing, and his shoulders fell like he'd been expecting this day all along. He said, "Pack, 2 bags, essentials only." Mom grabbed the car keys without arguing. That scared me more than anything. As we drove out of Grayfield, I kept looking back, half expecting to see blue lights or black SUVs, but the town just sat there, half asleep, as if we were ghosts already. I wanted to ask questions, but the hum of the road swallowed them. Finally, Dad said, "What you posted, it showed the barn." So? That barn belonged to someone I used to know, someone dangerous. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "They'll think I'm alive again." That's when I understood. My father wasn't who he said he was, and the people looking for him weren't strangers. They were family. We stopped outside a town called Elridge. 1 gas station, 1 diner, 1 broken motel sign flickering, vacancy, like a heartbeat. While Dad filled the tank, Mom went to buy bottled water. I sat in the car, scrolling through my feed, pretending everything was normal. Then a new comment appeared under my video. "You shouldn't have left Grayfield, Mara." The profile was empty, no name, no photo, but the location tag said Elridge, Ohio. I looked up. A man stood by the payphone across the lot, watching me. Not moving, just watching. His face was half hidden by a baseball cap, but there was something too familiar about the way he stood, like someone waiting for a signal. I locked eyes with him for a second too long. He smiled. Dad's hand came down on my shoulder so fast I flinched. When I turned back, the man was gone. The payphone swayed gently, as if he had just walked away. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it. The way he smiled, like he already knew me. We drove through the night, the road stretching endless and dark. Dad finally started talking just before dawn. His voice rasped from silence. He said, "When you were 2, there was a fire. A lot of people died. I helped start it." He didn't look at me when he said it. He continued, "I thought I was helping the police. I didn't know they'd burn everything. After that, we ran. We changed names. We thought it was over." Mom's hand found mine. She whispered, It was supposed to stay buried. But nothing stays buried anymore, not in a world that remembers everything. I stared out the window as the first light broke over the hills. The trees blurred into one long smear of gold and shadow. Somewhere behind us, the internet was still talking, building stories, connecting dots, digging deeper. And somewhere ahead of us, I could feel that man from the gas station waiting. The motel smelled like bleach and someone else's fear. The walls were the color of damp paper, the kind that curls when you breathe too close. Mom was already pulling the curtain shut before the door clicked behind us. Dad moved through the room like a soldier clearing a perimeter, checked the windows, unplugged the clock radio, snapped the SIM cards out of our phones. He said, "We don't exist here, not until I say." I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blank television. The silence felt staged, like the air before a confession. When I finally spoke, it came out smaller than I wanted. "Are we criminals?" Dad didn't look at me. "Depends who's asking." Mom whispered, "Mara, just rest." But how do you rest when your life's been reclassified as evidence? That night, I dreamed of the man by the payphone, except in the dream, he wasn't watching me. He was standing behind my father, whispering something I couldn't hear, while Dad nodded like they shared the same secret. When I woke, someone had slipped a folded note under the motel door. "You can't hide from what you recorded." We left the motel before sunrise. Dad didn't mention the note, neither did I. By the time we reached the next town, the world had turned into a guessing game. Every face at every diner felt like it might know our names. Every news alert was a threat wrapped in polite words. A headline read, "Missing family from Grayfield, witness protection or fugitives?" My own face stared back at the thumbnail. Mom tried to act calm, tracing circles on the steering wheel. She said, "They'll forget. The internet forgets fast." But that wasn't true anymore. The internet never forgets anything. It just buries things under new tragedies. At a rest stop, I opened the cracked laptop Dad kept hidden in the trunk. No Wi-Fi, no signal, but there was a file on the desktop named Rainer_logs. Inside, photographs. Dozens. Some old, some recent. All burned around the edges like they'd been rescued from fire. In one of them, I saw the man from the gas station standing beside my father, younger, grinning. Written on the back, he kept the tapes. The next night, the car broke down on a deserted stretch of highway. No lights, no houses, just the wind and the hum of power lines. While Dad worked under the hood, I sat with Mom in the front seat, watching her reflection in the windshield. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the glass. "Mom," I said softly, "who is he?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then quietly, "Your father used to record everything. The fire, the deals, the names. He said he was protecting us. But some people thought those tapes could destroy them." I swallowed hard. Does he still have them? I thought he burned them. I guess I was wrong. A shape moved in the rearview mirror, a flicker between the trees. "Dad?" I whispered, but Dad was still under the hood. Then, the car radio crackled to life. No station, no voice, just static at first. Then a whisper. "You shouldn't have left Grayfield." Mom's hand shot to the dial, twisting it off, but the whisper lingered in the dark, like it had already entered the air we breathed. We made it to a small auto shop at dawn. The mechanic looked at our plates and asked way too many questions. Dad smiled too easily, slipped him extra cash. That's when I realized my father's calm wasn't strength, it was performance. While they worked on the car, I walked behind the garage and found a public phone. I didn't even know who I meant to call until I dialed the number from the motel note. 3 rings. Then a voice I recognized from my nightmares. "Hello, Mara," the man said. My throat locked. "Who are you?" "Someone who used to trust your father. Someone who knows where the tapes are." "I don't care about tapes. I just want this to stop." "It won't," he murmured, "until you see what's on them." The line went dead. The payphone screen flashed, call recorded. When I turned, Dad was standing in the doorway, watching me with an expression I couldn't name, something between betrayal and relief. We drove in silence for hours. Finally, Dad pulled off the road into an abandoned farm. "This is where it happened," he said. The barn stood half collapsed, the wood blackened and brittle. Smoke stains still clung to the rafters. He lifted a loose floorboard and pulled out a tin box. Inside were 3 VHS tapes, wrapped in plastic. "This is what they've been looking for," he said. Mom stepped back like it was a weapon. "You kept them?" He whispered, "I couldn't destroy proof, not after what they did." He handed one to me. My name was written on it in faded marker. He said, "I filmed this the night you were born, before the fire." I looked at the barn, the ash, the endless sky bleeding into dusk. In that moment, I realized every story my father had ever told me was an edit, cut and spliced for survival. And now the uncut version was waiting inside a tin box that could burn the world again. I watched the first tape on a borrowed player in a roadside storage unit, sitting on a nettle chair while my parents waited outside. The screen flickered, and suddenly there was my father, young, alive in a way I'd never seen him. Behind him, a half-built barn and a line of trucks with their headlights on. He was smiling. "For the record," he said, laughing a little, "this is the night we make things right." But the camera kept rolling after he turned away. Someone else, out of frame, asked, "You sure they're all inside?" Then fire. Not the roar of an accident, but the measured sound of intention. I dropped the remote. My heartbeat filled the room. In the corner of the frame, a woman was holding a child. The camera panned by her face too fast, but for a second, I thought it looked like my mother. I stopped the tape and sat there in the humming dark, feeling something splinter quietly behind my ribs. The man from the gas station found me first. I was walking back to the motel when a truck pulled alongside, slow enough to make the night feel thinner. "Mara?" he called like we were old friends. He looked older than in the photo, scar near his jaw, eyes that had seen too much firelight. He said, "I'm Daniel, your father's partner." I should have run. I didn't. "He lied to you," Daniel said. "We weren't burning criminals, we were burning witnesses. He wanted it gone, all of it. He saved you because you were leverage." "Leverage for what?" He smiled, tired and sad. "For forgiveness." Then he handed me a flash drive. "When you're ready, watch this. It's what your father cut from the tapes." Before I could reply, he was already driving away, taillights disappearing like dying embers. When I turned around, my father was standing behind me. Dad didn't yell. He never did. That made it worse. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. I held up the flash drive. "From the man you said was dangerous." He reached for it, but I stepped back. For the first time in my life, he looked unsure of how to touch me, like he wasn't sure if I was still his daughter or a witness too. "He did what I had to," he said. "They would have killed us." "Who's they?" He opened his mouth, closed it, and sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "You think you know evil, Mara? You don't. You've only seen its ashes." I wanted to believe him, but the way he said ashes, like a memory he missed, made me wonder if he was talking about people or about power. That night, while my parents slept, I plugged in the flash drive. The file opened on static. Then an image, handheld, trembling, a fire burning out of control. The camera panned across faces I didn't recognize, until it stopped on a man tied to a chair. He was begging, not for mercy, but for someone to listen. A voice behind the camera, my father's voice, said, "Talk." The man sobbed. "There's a kid in the house." Another voice, Daniel's maybe, shouted, "Get him out." But my father's voice didn't answer. The screen filled with smoke, then black. I sat frozen, my reflection shaking in the dark monitor. When I looked down, I realized my hands were covered in dust from the old tapes. I wiped them on my jeans, but it felt like something permanent. From the other room, my father whispered in his sleep, "I told you it would end here." The next morning, my phone lit up with a blocked number. I almost ignored it. Then I heard Daniel's voice. "You saw it, didn't you?" "Yes." "Then you know what he is." "I don't know anything," I said, but my voice betrayed me. "There's a reason he never turned himself in, Mara. The tapes weren't about guilt, they were about control. He's keeping one more recording, the last night before the fire." "Where is it?" "Ask your mother," he said, and the line went dead. When I walked outside, Mom was already sitting on the curb, staring at the horizon. She said, "We can't keep running. Sooner or later, the story catches up." I realized then she wasn't talking about the news. She meant the story my father told us, the one we'd been living inside. And stories only survive as long as someone believes them. It was raining when I finally asked her. The motel window fogged with our breath, the air thick with silence that felt rehearsed. My mother always had that distant calm, the kind that made you wonder if she'd been waiting for the storm all along. I asked quietly, "Where's the last tape?" Her eyes didn't flicker. She just said, "In the house." I laughed because that house was gone, reduced to cinders 10 years ago. But she didn't laugh with me. She said, "Not that house. The first one." That's when I realized we hadn't just run from danger. We'd run in circles. Every escape was a route back to something unfinished. We left at dawn. The highway looked like it was still dreaming. Fog over the fields, silence under the tires. Dad didn't ask where we were going. Maybe he already knew. When he finally spoke, it was without accusation. "You think I'm a monster," he said. I didn't answer. "I kept you alive. I don't expect you to thank me for it." Mom turned up the radio as if sound could drown memory, but his words hung there, sticky as smoke. "Alive, yes, but at what cost?" An hour later, the town appeared. A single blinking traffic light, a diner with a broken sign, and beyond it, the remains of our old farm. We hadn't been back since the night everything ended. The fence was new. The soil wasn't. We parked behind the ruins. My mother led the way, her limp more visible now. She moved with purpose, like someone following coordinates burned into memory. The cellar door was buried under weeds and a tarp of rusted tin. When she lifted it, the smell hit me, damp earth and gasoline. Inside, it was all there. Boxes, old film reels, a safe with our last name scratched out. Mom kneeled beside it, punching a code I didn't recognize. The lock clicked. Inside, among burned photos and a revolver wrapped in cloth, was a single tape labeled Nov 12. My chest tightened. That was my birthday. She brushed the dust off gently, almost tenderly. "She told me to destroy it," she said, "but I couldn't. You were on it." The image flickered alive on the small monitor. A house I didn't recognize. My mother in the background, younger, holding me as a toddler. Then a knock at the door. Dad entered, blood on his hands, voice shaking. "They're gone," he said. "What do you mean gone?" "All of them." He sat down staring at me through the lens, as if he could already see this future moment. If anyone ever watches this, know that I didn't mean for her to see the world this way. But some things don't stay buried unless you feed them. Then the camera jolted, chaos, shouting, flames reflected in the window behind them, and a man's voice off-screen. "You started this, Joseph. Now you finish it." The screen cut to black. Mom turned off the player. Neither of us spoke. The storm outside was gone, replaced by the sound of insects. The world felt smaller. "What did he do?" I asked finally. Her eyes filled before she looked away. "He didn't kill them, Mara. He just didn't stop it." The difference sounded too thin to hold the weight of what we'd seen. I stepped outside to breathe, but the air tasted like ash.
Across the field, my father stood watching us, distant, still, like a scarecrow guarding a harvest that never came. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of what it meant to understand him. That night, I couldn't sleep. The tape played on a loop in my head. His voice, that line, "Some things don't stay buried unless you feed them." Feed them how? With lies? With silence? At 2 a.m., I walked to the truck and found the flash drive still in my jacket pocket. I plugged it into my phone. The screen lit my face. A message appeared in a folder I hadn't opened before. Backup upload, pending. Daniel's voice came through a recording. "Mara, if you're hearing this, the truth's already out. Don't run from it this time. Tell them everything. Let him burn for real." And then, static and something that sounded like gunfire in the distance. Morning came gray and cold. Dad was gone. The safe was empty. Mom sat at the table, hands clasped. She said, "He took the tape." "Then we stop him," I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure which version of stop I meant. Save him or finish what he started. She nodded once. "Then you'll need to know where he's going." "Where?" She looked straight at me. "To finish feeding it." By the time the sun rose, we were already on the interstate. My mother drove without speaking, her face blank but her knuckles white. Every few minutes, she checked the mirrors like someone expecting to see a ghost. The world looked hollow. Motels with peeling paint, half-lit gas stations, endless fields still wet from last night's storm. She said, He's not running," she said finally. "He's circling." I didn't understand until I saw the map folded in her lap. Red marker lines, looping routes that led back to the same dot in the center. A small town called Larkhaven. "That's where it started," she said. "And that's where he means to end it." By dusk, Larkhaven appeared not so much a town as a skeleton of one. Half the windows were boarded up, the rest stared blankly at the road. The diner where I used to get cherry pie as a kid was still there, but the sign hung at an angle, one light buzzing like a dying fly. We parked behind the diner and waited. The air smelled of rust and fried oil. Mom opened the glove box and handed me a gun wrapped in an old bandana. "I'm not using it," I said. "You might not have a choice." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a printed photo. My father, standing in front of a barn that wasn't there anymore, the same barn from the tapes. On the back, written in his handwriting, "To bury something, you have to know where you left it." We found the barn at the edge of town, swallowed by weeds. The door creaked open with a moan that felt alive. Inside, a table, a lantern, and a single object resting in the glow. The missing tape. No sign of Dad. Just his voice playing softly on a recorder. If you're hearing this, I need you to listen. What I did wasn't for us. It was for her. He meant me. Mom picked up the tape, trembling. "He's close," she whispered. And then, footsteps outside. I turned off the lantern. The dark rushed in fast. Through the slats in the wood, I saw a figure walking toward us, steady, unhurried. "Joseph?" Mom called. The door opened slowly and light from a flashlight cut across the floor. But it wasn't him. It was Daniel. He looked worse than before. Blood on his sleeve, mud on his boots, exhaustion in every step. "Where is he?" Mom demanded. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at me instead. "He's trying to upload it," he said. "The full footage. He thinks if the truth goes public, it'll clear him. But it won't, Mara. It'll burn everyone, you included." "Then help us stop him," I said. Daniel hesitated. His hand shook as he unzipped his jacket, revealing a pistol holstered to his side. "I already tried," he said quietly. "He shot first." Something shifted in the air, an understanding, old and bitter, between him and my mother. She stepped closer. "You were there that night too, weren't you?" He nodded once, "And I've been paying for it ever since."
Outside, thunder rolled again, soft and distant like a heartbeat buried under dirt. We found my father's truck abandoned at the old train yard, engine still warm. A signal jammer blinked red on the dashboard. On the passenger seat, a phone uploading a video file, 72% complete. I grabbed it. "We can stop this." Daniel shook his head. "If we kill the upload, it'll just try somewhere else. He's mirrored it." Mom took the wheel. "Then we find the source." We followed the coordinates on the phone. A warehouse by the river. Rain poured hard enough to blur everything into watercolor. Inside, rows of rusted machinery and the faint hum of a generator. And there, my father, sitting in front of a laptop, soaked, shaking, lit by the blue screen. He didn't look surprised to see us. "You shouldn't have come," he said. Mom stepped forward. "End it, Joseph." He smiled without humor. "I am ending it." He turned the laptop toward us. On screen, footage I hadn't seen before. The fire, the people, the chaos, but this time another angle. Someone else filming. And in the frame, my mother holding a gun. I couldn't breathe. "Mom?" She didn't deny it. "I tried to stop them," she said. Dad's voice broke. "You fired first." The video hit 99%. I lunged for the laptop. Daniel shouted. Gunfire cracked. The screen shattered. Sparks jumped. When the smoke cleared, Daniel was on the ground. My mother's hands shook around the gun. Dad knelt beside Daniel, pressing his hand to the wound. "He was never the enemy," he said, looking at me. "You don't understand, Mara. This was all supposed to protect you." But the upload was complete. The truth, or whatever version of it survived, was already out there. Sirens echoed somewhere far away, faint but coming closer. Mom sat down hard, her breath ragged. "It's done," she said. Dad looked up at her, face streaked with rain and grief. "No, it's just starting." Outside, lightning flashed, and for a split second, I saw my own reflection in the wet metal wall, pale and unrecognizable. It hit me then. This story wasn't about who burned the bodies or who filmed what. It was about who could live with the version that survived. And maybe I couldn't. The video hit the internet before dawn. No watermark, no credits, just a file called The Truth. Do not ignore. By noon, it was everywhere. On news sites, Reddit threads, TikTok edits with slowed down audio. Someone looped my face over eerie music, whispering, "She knows what happened." I tried to log off, but the notifications followed me. Phone vibrating non-stop, thousands of strangers deciding who I was. To some, I was a survivor. To others, an accomplice. Mom stayed in the motel room all day, lights off, whispering into her phone. I could only hear fragments. "No, I told him not to." Yes, the original is gone. No, she doesn't know. When I confronted her, she just said, "They've taken the story away from us." Then she looked straight through me, like I was already fading. The first reporter found me 2 days later at a gas station. She didn't even introduce herself before shoving a phone in my face. "Is it true your mother killed them to protect you?" The words hit like a slap. I didn't answer, I just ran. But by the time I reached the car, another camera was already waiting. Everywhere I turned, someone had an opinion about me. People dug through old social media posts, analyzing every smile, every caption, every shadow in the background. Someone even slowed down the fire footage, claiming to see my silhouette. Proof, they said, that I was there. The truth was, I didn't know if they were wrong. Sleep didn't come anymore. Instead, I replayed the moments I remembered. The night of the fire, the smoke, Mom's voice yelling my name. But now, when I closed my eyes, the footage replaced my memories. I started to see the version the internet believed. My mother with the gun, me watching, frozen. Was that how it happened? Had I convinced myself of something cleaner because I couldn't live with the truth? When I asked Mom, she stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You were a child," she said. "But I saw you." You saw what they want you to remember. That phrase, they want you to remember, stuck with me. Who was they? 3 nights later, I got an email from a private address. You don't know the real file. I do. Meet me if you want to see the original. Attached was a single frame, my dad's face, eyes wide, mid-sentence, a frame I'd never seen in the viral version. Below it, coordinates. I shouldn't have gone, but curiosity has a gravity all its own. The meeting spot was an old library in the industrial district, lights flickering like they were gasping for power. A man was waiting, mid-40s, heavy coat, face partly hidden by a scarf. He called himself the archivist. He said, "I collect things that shouldn't exist. Your father's footage was tampered with before anyone uploaded it." He slid a drive across the table. "This is the original, but if you open it, you can't go back." I asked him why he was helping me. He smiled sadly. "Because I helped destroy him." The file wasn't video, it was audio. Just one long recording, time-stamped the night of the fire. I listened in the motel bathroom, door locked. The first voice was my father's, urgent, panicked. "Mara, don't come inside. Stay with your mother." Then chaos. Shouting, engines, a gunshot, a woman screaming, and then my mother's voice. "You made her see this. You think she'll ever forgive you?" My father's reply was quiet, broken. "At least she'll know the truth." Static, then silence. I pressed pause and realized my reflection in the mirror looked different. Eyes older, mouth trembling. For the first time, I understood something cruel and simple. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just rearranges the bars of your cage. The archivist's file wouldn't leave me alone. I played it again and again until I could recite every word, every breath, every tremor in my father's voice. But something about the silence at the end, that perfect, unnatural stillness, felt wrong. I ran the file through every program I could find. Buried deep in the metadata was a ghost of another recording, 2 seconds long, muted. I isolated it, amplified the waveform, and then I heard it. My name, whispered, but not by my father. It was my voice, from a time I didn't remember. I threw my laptop shut and sat there in the dark, heart hammering. How could I be in a recording made before I even arrived that night? Unless someone had placed me there. I returned to the archivist's meeting spot the next night, but he was gone. Only a folded note on the table. Ask her about Project Remnant. I didn't need to ask who her meant. Mom was sitting on the bed when I came back, staring at a news segment replaying our family's footage with dramatic music. She looked hollow, like the air itself had worn her down. Project Remnant, I said. The color drained from her face. You don't want to know. I already do. She stood, pacing. It wasn't supposed to involve you. It was an experiment, your father's idea. He said we could control how people remember trauma by altering the recordings. Change the story, change the mind. And the fire? She closed her eyes. That was when he tried to erase everything. I couldn't breathe. My entire life. The photos, the videos, even the stories I'd told myself about my childhood might have been spliced together by the people I trusted most. You altered my memories? I whispered. Mom's lip trembled. To protect you, you saw things no child should have seen. Joseph wanted to delete them, but he couldn't, so he rewrote them. How? Through the footage. Every time you rewatched those home videos, we made tiny edits, brightened the colors, removed sounds, added others. You learned to remember the edited version. My head spun. That's why my voice is in that file. She nodded. It's not a fake. It's what you were made to forget. I backed away from her. In that moment, I didn't see my mother. I saw a stranger who had tampered with my entire life, convinced she was saving me. 2 days later, the news exploded again. Another leak. This time, the raw footage. Uncut, unedited, and it was worse than any version before. The video showed the fire from a high angle, maybe a drone. Men in masks dragging bodies out of a truck, my father among them. But this time, another figure appeared at the edge of the frame, my mother holding a lighter. The internet turned savage. Hashtag The Remnant Files trended for a week. People demanded arrests, documentaries, justice. Our motel was surrounded by cameras until we had to leave through the bathroom window. Everywhere I looked, I saw faces lit by phone screens watching us, consuming our lives like entertainment. We hid in an abandoned apartment above an old pawn shop. No Wi-Fi, no phones, just silence. But the silence didn't last. At night, I began hearing things. Whispers from the walls, clicks from the vents, as if the building itself were recording us. One night, I looked in the mirror and saw a camera lens flicker behind the glass. When I smashed it, a small device fell out, one I recognized instantly. It was the same brand my father used in his experiments. On the back, a word scratched into the metal. Remnant. That's when I knew the archivist wasn't gone. He'd been with us the whole time. And maybe he still was. I found him 3 nights later at a storage facility outside the city, under the name Joseph Hartman, my father's alias. He was waiting, calm, almost gentle. "You were never supposed to see the final cut," he said. "But now you have to decide what to do with it." He pulled out 2 drives. One is the truth, everything your parents did. The other is the version your father made for the world. Once you upload one, the other deletes itself. Choose carefully. I stared at them. Both drives looked identical. Which is which? He smiled faintly. That depends on what you're ready to live with. The drives sat on the metal table between us like 2 identical bullets. I could see my reflection warped across their chrome surfaces. One version of me trembling, the other perfectly still. The archivist leaned back, watching like a priest waiting for confession. "You said one is truth, but how can I trust you when everyone who's ever told me the truth used it like a weapon?" He tilted his head. "That's the thing about truth, Mara. It doesn't need to be trusted. It just is." I thought about my father's voice. Not the one on the recordings, but the one that used to whisper bedtime stories before everything fell apart. How he'd tell me, "People remember what they can survive." Maybe that's what he'd been doing all along, trying to make us survivable. The archivist opened a laptop, inserted one drive. The screen came alive with old home footage, our kitchen, a birthday cake, laughter. Then static cut through, and the laughter warped into screaming. A camera panned toward the back door, flames licking the frame. My mother's silhouette stood against the firelight, shouting something I couldn't make out. He swapped drives. Now the footage was clean. No screaming, no fire, just a warm, golden family dinner, the version the world had always seen. "They both feel real," I whispered. "Because they are. One is memory, the other is mercy." I stared at the screen until my chest hurt. I wanted to believe the gentle lie. I wanted to believe my parents were victims, not architects of their own ruin. But wanting didn't make it true. A low hum filled the room. I thought it was the hard drive at first, but then I realized it was coming from beneath the floor. The archivist froze. "Did you tell anyone you were coming here?" I shook my head. The lights flickered once, twice, then died.
Emergency red bled across the walls. He grabbed both drives and shoved one into my palm. Go, don't stop for anything. If they find you, you lose both. Who? Gunfire cut through the air. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. He shoved me toward a back exit just as a figure burst through the main door. Dark jacket, gloved hands, moving like a shadow. The archivist fired first. The shadow fired second. Then silence. I didn't look back. I ran. The city outside was drowning in rain. I ran through it barefoot, clutching the drive like it was a pulse. Sirens howled somewhere behind me, but they sounded distant, unreal. Every streetlight flickered like a warning. Every face I passed seemed to know me from the videos. When I finally stopped, I was standing at the same bridge where my father had been arrested years ago. The one that had become the symbol of his redemption, now nothing but a backdrop for lies. The drive in my hand felt heavier than it should. I looked over the edge at the black water below. If I dropped it, no one would ever know what really happened. My family could rest in peace, or at least in illusion. If I released the truth, I'd burn what was left of us. A car slowed behind me. For a second, I thought it was the police. Then a familiar voice. Mira, don't. It was my mother. She stepped out, soaked through, eyes red. Please, she said. That drive, it's not just about your father. It's about everyone he hurt. If you release it, they'll come after you. I looked at her. The woman who had rewritten my past to protect me, who had lied so well I'd almost become the lie. Then tell me, I said softly, what's on it? She hesitated. Tears mingled with rain. It proves we started the fire. The words hit like a physical blow. Why? To stop him, she said. He wanted to erase all the evidence. The children he experimented on, the families he blackmailed, he was going to wipe it all. So I burnt it first. There are moments when the world stops pretending it's complicated. It just becomes two choices, clear as glass. I knelt, opened the laptop, and slotted the drive in. Rain hit the keys like static. My reflection hovered on the dark screen. Part me, part stranger. Mom watched, shaking her head. If you do this, everything ends, I said. I know, but if I don't, it never will. I uploaded the file. The progress bar crawled upward. 1%, 12%, 37%, 64%. Outside, thunder rolled like applause. My mother fell to her knees, whispering my name. By the time the upload hit 100%, the world had already begun to change.
The next morning, every major news outlet had the footage. Names, experiments, payments, even government seals. My father wasn't the victim the world mourned. He was the man who built the lie that kept a dozen crimes buried. My mother's voice appeared in one file, begging him to stop. Public outrage erupted. Protests, raids, arrests. And me, the girl in every frame, became both villain and witness. Weeks later, when the dust settled, I visited what was left of our old house. The ruins were quiet, rain-soaked, green with new moss. For the first time in years, I didn't film it. I just stood there, breathing. The world knew everything now, and somehow that made it bearable. I didn't feel free, exactly, just real. And that was enough. They talked about the Remnant case on the news, a 3-month media storm that burned through every network until there was nothing left but ashes. But for me, it never really ended. I still wake to the hum of servers, to the flicker of phantom images behind my eyelids, to the sound of my father's voice in a place where it shouldn't exist. 6 months after the leak, I live under a false name in a coastal town where no one asks questions. The sea eats everything here. Secrets, time, even memory. People come to vanish, and I've learned how to fade just enough to stay alive. The authorities gave me a new identity, though protection feels like a word they use when they want you silent. No recording, no interviews, no public statements. My life officially never happened. But the truth doesn't die just because you stop speaking it. I used to think my father died saving lives. That was the story the world bought. The footage of him carrying people out of a burning facility, coughing through the smoke, collapsing in a halo of firelight. They replayed it on national television for weeks, calling him a hero, a martyr, a man of science who gave his life for humanity. The unedited version, the one buried deep in the drives the archivist gave me, told a different story. He wasn't saving anyone. He was erasing them. The fire wasn't an accident. It was the final act of an experiment that had gone too far. The Project Erebus wasn't about preserving memory. It was about controlling it. They built software that could edit human recollection, splice reality, and overwrite trauma with manufactured joy. The test subjects were families like mine, unaware, compliant, fed a version of life that had been rewritten hundreds of times. The night of the fire, he realized the system was failing. People were remembering fragments, flashes of their real pasts. Panic spread through the facility. He triggered a full wipe to protect his work from exposure. The flames were his failsafe. He killed every person who remembered too much, including himself, rather than let the truth out. My mother tried to stop him. She ran into the control room as the fire spread. The footage cut off before the explosion, but the last frame shows her hand reaching for his and pulling me out of the recording chamber. I never remembered that part until I saw it. He looked right at the camera before it melted. His last words were quiet, calm, almost rehearsed. If truth is chaos, let them believe the lie. When I leaked the files, the internet broke itself trying to understand. Millions downloaded the video before the government could censor it. Some called my father a visionary, others a monster. Some claimed the footage was deep-faked. No one agreed on anything, which, in a way, was the truest result of all. The very concept of truth fractured, just like he'd predicted. Mom didn't survive the aftermath. The court said she was mentally unfit to stand trial. They placed her in a quiet institution in another state. She sends me letters now. Thin paper, trembling handwriting. Each one ends with the same line. He meant well. We both did. I used to burn them. Lately, I've started keeping them. Maybe because I'm afraid to forget what her voice looked like on the page. A few weeks ago, I received another anonymous envelope. No return address. Inside was a hard drive. Small, silver, unmarked. I knew immediately whose it was. The archivist's files had been thought destroyed after his death, but inside this one, there was a single folder. Erebus Archive Final Render. It wasn't data. It was a message. When I opened it, I saw raw footage of myself. Not now. Younger. Maybe 14? Sitting in front of a camera, reciting lines I didn't remember saying. Behind me, my father's voice coaching softly, telling me when to smile, when to look sad, when to pause for effect. Every movement, every tear, rehearsed. I realized then, even my grief had been directed. The entire story, every memory of who I thought I was, might have been part of his test, a simulation of authenticity. My life had been edited before I ever had a choice. Tonight, I'm standing on the pier where the sea meets the gray horizon. I brought the drive with me. The wind is sharp, the waves restless. I hold the metal in my hand and think of him, the man who built a machine to control the truth and lost himself inside it. He wasn't evil, just terrified. Terrified of chaos, of pain, of people turning on one another because they remembered differently. He wanted to give the world something cleaner, simpler, a story where no one suffered too much. But lies, even merciful ones, rot from the inside out. I drop the drive into the ocean, watch it sink beneath the surface until the ripples vanish. The truth is still out there somewhere, in half-burned servers, in archived clouds, in the digital skeletons of memory. It will surface again someday, not because people deserve it, but because truth always claws its way back. And when it does, maybe they'll finally see him for what he was. Not a hero, not a villain, just a man who tried to fix the human story and forgot that it was supposed to hurt. The waves are rising now. I turn my back on them and start walking toward the lights of town. My reflection flickers in a shop window just for a second, a faint distortion, as if someone else were still behind the glass, watching, recording. I don't look back, because maybe he was right about one thing. Truth doesn't set you free. It just teaches you how to live with the ghosts that do.
If this story moved you and stayed with you, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and share it with someone who'd feel it too. The more people who see it, the more voices we give to stories that deserve to be remembered.